Welcome on my first step ever. With every episode, with every new story, we learn something new. But that new thing that we learn from every story tells us that how important it is to own our journey, to respect everything that we have learned from our challenges, from our success, and also build that kind of conviction that can only take us forward only when we have belief in our own self. So, on this episode of My First Step Ever, where we uncover the behind the scenes of what it really takes to be the amazing guest speaker that we have today, I would love to introduce and join me in welcoming Seshnie Taylor all the way from Australia today. Seshnie, welcome on My First Step Ever.
Thank you so much, Ishani. It's great to be here.
Likewise, Seshnie I know very personally because we worked in the similar co-working space. She was amazing when I first met her. I just got a really friendly, approachable vibe. And as I got to know her, I saw a thorough professional, a woman who knows her business, who knows her work, and even in a professional setting, she knows with her amazing questions, the accurate questions that she asks, the curious questions, how to make things work. And she is an amazing connector. So whoever is in Adelaide or in Australia, I'm sure, is very well versed with sessionies, and I would love her to be on this podcast and share with everyone who's listening to us today, watching us today, that what a woman and a human can do if they have that will to surpass the challenges that's thrown on the way. So, from Shanghai to Sydney and from languages to leadership, this week's guest is a powerhouse of purpose and passion. Seshnie Taylor, she's a mother of two, a lively toddler, and an equally energetic pup, a partner, a linguistic, and the visionary founder and CEO of Vocare. Now, we're going to learn a bit more about that very soon. It's a bold new venture helping skilled migrants speak up and stand out at work. And I think this just kind of flows into Sessionee's personality. Whoever she meets, this comes naturally to her. This is all that she helps people do, even without, kind of really making people feel that she's kind of doing it. She's so effortlessly naturally doing this for everyone who I think comes in her contact. So I think it's very natural for her to get into something like this, to create a magical space for migrant women and women in general. So with 5 languages under her belt and lived experiences across 5 countries, Seshnie truly understands the life-changing power of clear, confident communication. And before founding Vocare, she built and led a successful language company in Shanghai and later steered ecosystem partnerships in Australia's national tech startup hub. And that's where we met. So today, she's on a mission to empower those working in care organizations to overcome language barriers using AI powered speech tools. Wow, that's interesting. Bespoke workshops and real cultural insight. Seshnie is a proof that you don't need to have all the answers to take your first step. You just need your voice and courage to do it. So, my friends, if you have been glued so far, I would say that you're in for some really amazing insights from the amazing guest speaker's journey today. So hit that subscribe button on Spotify or on YouTube, wherever you're watching, and let's get started. Seshnie, we are going to get straight into this and we're going to trace our steps back to your very amazing and early childhood. Love to know, where were you growing up and what was the mindset of people that you were surrounded with?
Great question to start with, Ishani. So I was born in the Zulu Kingdom of South Africa in a city called Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. And I grew up, actually, I was born into the apartheid system, which means that legally South Africa was separated by races. So if I take you back, to that time, it was obviously very different. And thank goodness in 1994, the apartheid officially ended. Now, I grew up in a very interesting household with 2 different strong cultures. In South Africa, generally people are categorized or were categorized into different races. So please excuse the language that I use here. I'm just referring back to what was historically taking place in South Africa. So Indian South African, colored South African, white South African, and black South African. So those are the general four race categories. Now, I was born into an Indian and a colored household. My mother was colored, my father was Indian, South African, both South African. And immediately with that, I was born into a home that placed a lot of emphasis on hard work and education. And from a very young age, I grew up seeing mass inequality in society. I lived in a beautiful house with a swimming pool, a beautiful garden, and we would drive to my primary school and we would see miles of squatter camps of people living literally in shacks. And my parents used to say to us, look outside the window, look at those people. They are not going to school today. So when you go to school, you need to realize how lucky you are and make the most of it. So I grew up, that's like 4, 5, 6 years old, being very aware of the privilege that I have and the responsibility that comes with it.
It's very commendable of your parents to, even at that tender and early age, to share this thought with you every time that you kind of travel, that education is a luxury. When it comes at certain point, it is an opportunity and a luxury in many cases. And that he did spell it out to you. I mean, there are times when, parents may not be able to share that because they feel that the kids are too small, they might not understand, or whichever way. But I think just by spelling that out, they were kind of raising very aware, as you said, children. But given that you were very young at that point in time and you saw a lot of different ways that people lived at that point in time, a life that you were leading and a life that you saw other people while you were going to school on the way. And every day, probably often you got to hear from your parent that you are fortunate enough to make the most of it and be grateful for it. How was that shaping you as a person?
I think it really made me be aware of my surroundings, and it made me look up and question why life was the way it was as a child. I think I should also include in there that it sounds like, my beginning was a very privileged background, but my parents actually got divorced, and I got to see another side of life, which was much less affluent. And in that situation, that also gave me exposure to other people in communities and understand that it's good to help each other. It's good to lend your neighbor a cup of sugar if they need it. It's good to pick up rubbish if you see it on the street. I just got to like pretty big life experiences when I was 10 and under, the ages of 10 and under. And I just basically got to see different ways of living, and it just really instilled in me that if you work hard, you can build a better life for yourself.
So, Seshnie, as you said, that you got to experience really big life experiences while you were maybe just even before you turned into a teenager, which is a very troublesome, exciting, yet very fragile age. Up until that time, the experiences that you had, is there any one incident that probably still stays with you for good or for bad that may have, impacted you or left a sort of an impression on you for life, if you would like to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. It was for us the move that we made from South Africa to the UK at the age of 10. And that was huge and pivotal for so many reasons. But essentially, it was an opportunity for our family to move to the UK, which in my mind as a child growing up in South Africa and reading encyclopedia books and seeing pictures and studying history, I held this amazing view of England, that it was so special and so fancy, and I thought everything would be small and close and you could walk everywhere in cobbled streets. And I had this like sort of child's imagination of what the UK was. And I just kept praying and hoping that we could move there. And when I saw my mum studying at nighttime to try to get her IT degree so that she could go there as a skilled teacher to teach ICT. Wow. And I saw her interviewing and she didn't get the first job. But then the second one she did get, and she came home and she said, guys, I've got the job. We're moving to England. And it was like the best thing ever. And it actually felt like we'd won the lottery because I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to England. This is so exciting. It's happening. And I told all my friends, I'm moving to England. I can't wait. And it was just pure excitement, that childlike naivety of not knowing all the homesickness and difficulties that would come later. But that sense of adventure and a chance to build our own lives in a new country. So that was really pivotal and one of the best things that ever happened in my life as a child, and really shaped me as a person.
That's incredible. And so from their session, when that moment really happened in your life, the little amazing session that moved from, South Africa to UK. Tell us about, talk to us about the first few years. How was the settling in, and how was that shaping you as a person?
Yeah, it was a really exciting time for me. I'm naturally quite outgoing, and I was just really excited to get into school and make friends. And I guess what really struck me was, well, we moved to England in September 2001, so a few days after 9/11. So my poor mother was like terrified of us flying at that time, but thank God we arrived safely. And we got into school like the second day or the third day within landing in the
Wow,
UK, so
that's
straight
quick.
into school. Fast transition. And I just remember feeling really, really grateful and really lucky. I couldn't believe that school was so amazing. Like I went to a mid-level school in South Africa. It was nice, but pretty rustic. And suddenly this school had all these amazing facilities and like art lessons. Like there was so much focus on creativity, which I didn't
I
have in
love
South
that.
Africa. It was very much focused on science and maths. And then in England, we had time to read. And I thought, but that's in your private time. Why is this allowed in school? And they gave us the opportunity to do a theatre show. And I
Wow.
couldn't believe it. Yeah, we like together we studied a Roald Dahl's book, The Twits, and it was a really funny story. And we got to perform it at the end of year school concert. And we did so many cool things. And I just kept thinking, this is so much fun. School is so much fun, and it's not
Wow.
scary. Yeah, and I actually was really shocked when I experienced a young child. So this was, 10, 11 years old. A child actually in my class swore the teacher. And I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked. I'd never seen anything like that in my whole life. Because in South Africa, that actually would have led to that child being hit by the teacher and also like expelled from school. And when I saw that this teacher didn't respond with violence and this teacher was like just sent the child out, I thought, "Oh, that's very different." I just couldn't believe that the difference in attitude actually, that there were kids actually misbehaving in school compared to sitting there quietly and just listening. So that was a big shock. And I don't know, all I can say is I was extremely grateful. And every opportunity that came to me in that school and in high school afterwards was just like, I can't believe how lucky I am to have the opportunity to do a poetry club or learn how to play the violin or do a debate club. And I just said yes to everything because I wanted to and because I felt like it was an honor to be there and to have that chance. And I have to also share that within moving to England, it was hard at first because it was so cold. It was so cold. Like, we had no idea how cold it would be. And like, we had two winters that year because it was obviously in the southern hemisphere winter from like May to August. And then we moved in September and it was getting colder. And we were like, whoa. So it was freezing cold. And that took us some time to get used to uh, that and the darkness and the rain. And even as a 10, 11-year old, that was pretty shocking. But yeah, it took us a good 5 years until we felt like we actually settled in the UK.
It's really interesting to learn about your childhood and your growing days, Seshnie, because I think we have spoken so many times, but it's the first time I'm getting to know you a bit more
Mm,
closely, in a way that I can understand, where things stem from. You're so confident, you're so understanding, you're approachable, and you do mean whenever you do anything. Like you really mean it, like when you're saying something, if you're helping someone. And now I can see how things kind of flow in your personality.
thank you.
One thing I think that you mentioned, Seshini, is that you were always grateful for what you were experiencing, and then you were recognizing the worth of everything that you were getting at that point in time. It's really interesting that your parents instilled that really early on for you. And I think that also makes you think that, wow, this is something that I'm privileged to have. And if I have it right now in the present time, I should make the most of it. That kind of, thought process really helps. anyone, even who's listening to us today, if you're in that position, as our session is mentioning, if you are given an opportunity, if it's a city, if it's a new job opportunity, or if it's a personal relationship, whatever you are in today, and if you feel that it is something interesting, it's new, it is helping you feel more alive, being grateful for it and recognizing that you are fortunate enough to kind of experience it is a really good thing, because then that helps you make it enjoy even more in present. So Seshini, one thing is very sure, that as you mentioned, you were very outgoing, very confident. How did that confidence stem in you around that point in time? I think because you've already told us that for the time being, when you were in UK, up until I think you were already kind of in your grade 12, you were saying yes to everything that came your way. How did you think that probably you got that confidence?
Wow. I guess, and as I'm getting older, I'm realizing your early childhood years are so important. And I think in reflecting on this, I'm grateful and fortunate that my parents instilled in me a sense of so much love and really made me feel like I was special from a young age. And I think that that actually really lit something in my heart to just go, you've got this, you can do this. Like the world is your oyster. So that is fortunate, but then also to believe it for myself, not just listen to it, but really accept it in my heart that yes, I am good, I am special, I am lovable, all of these things, and then just to go out into the world. So I think whether or not you have that, whether that's from your parents or from your other family relatives or your really good friends, those early years of instilling that love in a child is just so important.
That's true. And Sashini, I would like to kind of emphasize this for our listeners also over here, that everyone has a different childhood and everyone has very different
Yes.
experiences. But what we can take away from, I think, Sashini's journey, or, what the message that I think she's sharing with us is that wherever, whichever point of life you are in, and even if you feel that there's no one to love you, but I think if you sit with yourself and you see that how far you have come in your life, there must definitely be at least one point in your life which you were in a very difficult situation, but you have managed to overcome that. And I'm very sure about this. So think about it
Mm.
and think, and you will come to know that it was all you who has done it. So believe in yourself. And I think confidence definitely comes from our loved ones who show that in us. And it also comes from you doing the things that you are interested in or you feel like, and then actually seeing yourself doing it. Whether it's good or whether it's maybe you have achieved the results the way that you wanted, that's a secondary thing, I feel. But if you
Mm.
have taken the action, it will itself give you the confidence of where you're,
Mm.
about yourself and where you're leading in your life. Especially on that note, sometimes our confidence do waver, and especially when we are in our teenage or very fragile, as I mentioned, up until your grade 12, just before we enter into the early adulthood life of our undergrad and everything. In that period, in those many years in UK, was there ever an incident or a time or a situation that maybe shook your confidence a bit? If yes, how did you overcome that?
100%. Oh my gosh, so many trials, so many difficult periods. I think one that really stands out to me and has been very important, pivotal in my whole career now, is the time when I graduated from my master's degree in international relations. I always wanted to do something to go and help others. That was one of my missions. Go and help others, use my languages to help others. And I thought it would be amazing to work for the UN or become a diplomat. Now, that was the path that I really wanted to do. And when I graduated in 2014 from the master's, I couldn't get a job. The UK was in a moment where I think I read there were over 1 million graduates and not enough graduate jobs. And so competition was fierce. And no matter, I would just spend all day, Monday to Friday, just sitting at my parents' kitchen table applying for jobs. And, also consider I had to pay back my student loans. My parents did not pay for my education. I paid for it myself. So I had these pressing deadlines that I had to start paying back my student loans and I had to get a job as soon as possible. And it was really, really disheartening applying for hundreds of jobs and not hearing back or just getting a generic, unfortunately, you're not successful in this application emails. And it really knocked my confidence. I thought, what have I done? Like I studied for 5 years And I did the path that all the career advisors told me to do. And they said, sure, you speak languages, you play an instrument, you've volunteered, you've got good grades, like you'll be fine. But actually, I wasn't fine. It turns out I did not have the connections to get into the jobs that I wanted to in London. And that's what it came down to. And I'll tell you a funny story because I just finished my master's degree in China and then I moved back to the UK. I was living with my parents and I realized that I had to actually apply for job benefits to help me to, like I couldn't get anything. So
Right.
the funny story was I was desperately applying to the UN and I couldn't get in. So I just made a plan that I would go to London. So where I grew up in Ipswich was just an hour on the train. Go to London, go to the head office of UNICEF, walk in there and just talk to anybody because I was just so frustrated. So I waited in the reception area. I said to the reception person, please can I speak to anybody who works here just to ask them about my CV? Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I need. And they thought I was a bit crazy, but I said, like, just let me talk to somebody. So somebody came down. I spoke to them. I said, please look at my CV and tell me what's missing. What can I do to get a job here? She said, yeah, this is great. Your CV's ideal. This is the kind of person we'd like to employ. Can you do an unpaid internship for 6 months with us? And I said, I'm sorry, but who can? Who can afford to do that? I've got student loans to pay back. I said, I would love to come and do an internship here, but unpaid for 6 months living in London? On what planet? And that was pivotal to me because I thought, that doesn't align with me. What are the values of UNICEF? What are the values of the UN? You're trying to help people who are less fortunate than you. But if you don't have that lived experience of what it is like to struggle and then go and help those people and understand exactly how they feel and be empathetic, who's actually in this organization? Might it be people who are actually quite privileged and have never known suffering? Maybe. And it just sort of really dawned on me that I didn't want to be a part of an organization like that. I wanted to be actually helping people in a more tangible way. I then went back to Ipswich and somebody at the job seeker center said, I've seen you coming here every day. What's your story? What are you doing here? And I told him and I showed him my CV and he said, Seshnie, the job that you need doesn't exist. You need to go and create your own job. He said, think about it. Steve Jobs, Oprah, these kind of people, do you think that their job descriptions existed when they started out? Of course not. They had to go out there and build their own jobs. And I said to him, but that's crazy. I'm definitely not an old Steve Jobs. I'm just little old Seshnie. What are you talking about? I'm not a business person. Who am I to do that? And he said, who are you not to do that? He said, you can go and do that. You can go and create your own path. And that lit something in my heart to just, it really planted a seed. And I wish I could go back and find that man to tell him, look at what happened. Thank you. Wow. Because from that, I really, I persevered. But it was a big experience for me.
No, I think this is the perfect moment to sit back and listen to someone's story, exactly the journey, that what made that change, that switch, because even till date, the challenges that you face then is relevant. I mean, I am once again, I think for the very third time again in the same boat of, going ahead and looking for more opportunities, given the previous place that I was working with, we have wrapped up over there. So I understand like what you're saying, but I think it is definitely a courageous thing to listen to what someone else is saying. And sometimes the first thing is denial because we don't know because that's what I've always believed. Representation is important because something that you don't see, we don't really understand that even exists. And I think that's when Seshnie, I think people like you who want to do something without any, restrictions or without any ifs and buts, and really want to do it from your heart. That kind of thing is very difficult to kind of find in a job scenario, in a corporate role, because there's always an ifs and buts attached to it, and you're always supposed to be straight jacketed in one role. But when you are as creative, as strategic, but you have a mission attached to it, it involves a lot of different aspects which one job may not be able to satisfy. And I'm so glad that the person met you. They did take out the time to have a conversation with you and to tell you that, hey, what you're trying to do may not work out. Why don't you think about this? So I think it's very nice for me. I have an eye, especially here, these kind of anecdotes, incidences, or story, because it just makes us realize that sometimes what other people see in you, you may not be able to see because you're actually in the middle of the entire chaos. So you're still managing your life. But that is amazing. So Seshnie, as you mentioned, that something changed in you from there. What happened after that? We would love to know. I mean, usually the first thing is feeling scared, and the second thing is, how am I supposed to do that? So, but how
Yeah.
was that for you?
Yeah. I think you have to think outside the box. And if I could just pass on one really helpful exercise to trial, it's this. Get a blank piece of paper, A4 paper, whatever size you like, and write down what makes me happy. What makes me happy? And go for it. Like, I wrote down what makes me happy using my languages, traveling, eating sushi, hiking, like all the things that make you happy, and think of it professionally, health wise, relationships, everything. What makes you happy? And then also ask yourself the question, if I had $10 million, what would I do? If you had $1 million, what would you do? And write it down. Really, really write it down. Your biggest dreams. And for me, that was move to Shanghai because I loved Shanghai. That's where I wanted to be. It was go to Japan, move to Australia, have a child. It was all of these things. Write it down. And then the scariest moment was, what's stopping me? Today, what is stopping me from doing those things? And I swear it was my mindset. And that was the biggest realization. It was literally my own mindset of, I have to do what everyone else does. I have to get a job, work in London, pay my student debts, do this, buy a house, get married. It was that. And I thought, actually, I don't have to do that. I don't, because my dreams and my goals and what makes me happy are these things. And now I'm going to go after them. So from that moment, I just did a bit of research. I said, okay, can I afford to just quit my job and move to Shanghai? Let me look at if there's jobs in Shanghai. What do they pay? They pay less money than in London, but the living costs in Shanghai are cheaper than London. So can I afford it? Did the maths? Yes, I can afford to do that and pay back my student loans. How much does a ticket to Shanghai cost? Great. Do I have that money? Yes or no? Yes, buy the ticket, no, save, and then go. And I literally made a plan of action. And then within 6 months, I moved to Shanghai, quit my job, moved to Shanghai, one-way ticket. And then I started making plans, go to Japan, do this, make a plan to move to Australia. And I tell you, it manifested and it happened because I wrote it down on a bit of paper and I told everybody, this is what I'm going to be doing. And then I did it. And I think, a lot of the time in life, we can make excuses. Quite frankly, we can say, this is too hard, or this, no, I can't do this. I've got this debt. I've got this to think about. But actually, if you make a plan of action of how you can get there, it is possible.
So I think what we have learned today is that if you really are scared about something, sit down and break it down and how you can do it in your current situation. So the
Yes.
best thing is to audit your current situation. And I like the fact that you mentioned you have given an exact timeline that it took you 6 months to actually execute that plan, which tells us that it takes a bit of a planning, takes a bit of a realistic account of what you have financially and how things can work. Be it today or tomorrow or after a year or after 2 years, if you're able to make it, you're still able to make it. So I think there is no expiry date, or there's no rush to get your goals, kind of accomplish your goals. If you have written them down, it will eventually happen if you keep working towards it according to your situation. So I really like that practical approach. Thank you so much for sharing that session. And
No
once that
problem.
happened with you, you were in Shanghai. That's where I think you started your own first business in languages.
Yes.
Please take us through how did that happen, because that is very scary.
It is, yeah. So it's crazy. When I first went to China in 2012, during my undergraduate degree, I noticed that there were parents at the university gates literally approaching my friends and I and saying, "You're from the UK, please can you come to my house and tutor my child? I'll pay you." It was like £20 per hour, which was way higher than the minimum wage. And we were like, for an hour's work? Sure. So as broke
Why
students, we were
not?
like, absolutely. So I started doing like I think like 2 hours every Saturday I'd go and tutor these twins. And I'd have so much fun, and I'd just create on my little laptop these PowerPoint presentations. I'd go to their house, their mom, grandma would make nice snacks for me. Just teach them English, just have a conversation, play games. And then that actually helped me to like pay for my food and my bills when I was studying at that time. And then I went back the next year to do my master's. Same thing happened. And I thought, gosh, okay, they still want these private tutors to go to their homes. Interesting. Didn't think anything more of it. So then I went back to the UK, graduated. Then I went back to Shanghai, and I thought, I wonder if I can get a job teaching English now for an organization. So that's how I got back into Shanghai. So I got them to pay for my work visa and my flights to go and work for this English organization. British company, flying out tutors, English teachers to go and work there. I did that for 3 months and quickly realized the same thing was happening. People were coming up to me and saying, you're from the UK, can you please come and tutor my child at home? And this was a different model from the job that I was doing in this English center in a building. And I thought, okay, so this model, this English company is getting people to travel to them, but I'm still getting requested to go to the houses, to the Chinese houses. So then somebody said, you're getting so much demand privately, I wonder if that could actually sustain you and fund you. And I did the maths, the calculations, and I quickly realized I could earn more money through private tutoring rather than my day job.
Amazing.
And then that was in 2016. I did some more research and realized that was the first year that the Chinese government was allowing foreigners to have wholly foreign-owned enterprises. So for the first time, you didn't have to have a Chinese business partner. You didn't have to have 1 million RMB in your bank to found a company. You could just do it from, I think it costs like 5,000 RMB, which is like 500 pounds, which is about $1,000. So I was like, is that it? Okay, so I then went and spoke to 5 different lawyers to make sure, 5 or 6 different lawyers to make sure that what I was doing was legal and that it was safe and fine and in, complying to all the rules, and that I would, work out paying the right taxes and have an accountant. So I found an organization to help me establish this company. I paid them a fee to make sure everything was legit. And then from that, I actually gave myself my own working visa so I could just continue to work in China. And
Wow.
I founded the company. I founded the company like that I think it was official in 2017, January 2017, I got the license. And then from that, I had full reign to go and leverage all of my networks and to start growing the business, start generating my own income. And I swear it was the craziest realization to start with I think I had less than 10 clients at that point, and I could create my schedule and go and work for them and go to their houses, traveling all over the city. I then put just like a poster in my apartment building in the lift, like English. I wrote it in Chinese, and I was like, okay, English teacher living in your building, scan this QR code if you want a free trial and a lesson. And then the security took it down within 1 hour because it wasn't meant to be there. But even within that 1 hour, I got so many requests. So many people said, I saw your poster. Can you come and tutor? Can you come and tutor? I was like, oh my gosh, now it's too many. And then I had so many clients. I was like, whoa, what do I do now? So then I started to ask my friends, my British and American friends who were also like living there, working for that English center. I said, hey, do you want a 200 RMB per hour, like 20 pounds per hour, which is like $40 per hour to come and tutor? They were like, sure, Seshnie, of course. So I just charged the parents a premium.
Yeah.
I created the lesson content and I made 50 to 60% profit margins on that. So my friends were teaching for me and I was getting paid for it.
This is amazing.
So it was crazy. I was like, and I swear I was so shocked. I remember the very first teacher and transaction where it happened. And I thought, I have literally just made money through just like that. Like the employee is happy for me to pay them that amount. The client is happy to pay that amount. I think I'm onto something here.
This is incredible. This is really incredible. I think, maybe I think this is probably what people who are able to kind of realize opportunities, maybe they think differently. That's how I think they think like you, like the opportunities how. But I think the best way is like when you have a problem to solve, that's when you look at it from a very different lens. And I think that's what I can understand in your journeys, that when there was a gap. There was a demand, and when you were able to kind of really fill it, but you really made sure that how you can make things work in the best way possible. And I love it, but I think a lot of people always have this question, like how you said you invested a little bit to help a company to build you up in a as a business itself. So at that very first stage, when you were actually investing a bit of your earned money to help yourself build as a business, did you
Mm.
ever feel a little bit of, a kind of a doubt or fear, what if it doesn't work? What if I'm investing the money over here? Obviously, it's for your own betterment, for your own growth. But how did you, what was your mindset at that point in time? What were you telling yourself that, it really made things work for you?
Well, I think it's important to recognize I actually didn't invest that much in it, quite honestly. It was very much a business that grew organically. So I had the demand, I had paying customers before I went into it. So that was important to see and test that what I had, the services people were willing to pay for. And then, of course, I was scared when there were quieter moments or lessons were cancelled or people were sick and couldn't make it, and it was scary. And add an extra level of complexity, I then decided to move. I had a boyfriend back then, and he wanted to move to Beijing, so I moved to Beijing with him and had to start the business from scratch there. And that I had like 2 months of like eating oats to try to survive. Like I didn't have much money then because I was like I had a little bit of income still generating from Shanghai, where my teachers were still tutoring, and I had a bit of profits there, but I didn't have enough to sustain myself well in Beijing. So that took like 6 months to take off there. But of course, I had doubts. Of course, there were moments when I was like, it's $1 trillion industry teaching English in China. $1 trillion. There's so much competition. And I did have people trying to copy my business. But I just stayed firm in what I was doing was high quality. What I was doing, there was a need for. And it didn't matter if competitors came in and undercut the price. That didn't matter because what I was providing was that level of care and that level of quality that customers couldn't get elsewhere.
I
So
love this.
that worked.
This is a master class in kind of starting your own business with a lot of heart, purpose, and meaningfully taking every next step when it actually makes sense, and not just kind of going all in with right strategy, with right research, with right heart, I think, put into it. And I think you, as you said, you manifested things, and the next chapter was you wanted to go to Japan, and that happened, and then you came to Australia. I think I'm really fortunate, and I think everyone who's listening to us, that we have been able to take a sneak peek of your journey so far up until then. And before we kind of come to close of this episode and wrap up, I would really love to know a little bit about your chapter in Japan, and then about work in Australia.
Sure. Oh, sorry, I should add I didn't live in Japan. I just wanted to visit Japan.
Ah.
So I was just always interested. So yeah, I in 2019, I finally took some time out from the business because I might add, through finding the company, I really overworked because it's a real hustle culture of what you put in is what you get out. So I worked a lot of 7-day weeks. I didn't take many holidays. And so in 2019, I took 6 weeks and I just created my dream plan. I went to Bali, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and really got to experience the beauty of Asia. And then that was also just before I decided to pack up and move to Australia. And it's been 5.5 years since my partner and I immigrated to Australia, right at the start of COVID, which was very challenging in itself. So I guess if this is a good segue, moving to Australia was really an opportunity to understand the lay of the land and figure out whether I wanted to create my own business here, because I knew that model worked in Shanghai, and I obviously can see that there's a lot of Chinese people here who would like to improve their spoken English. Or I thought I could have a bit of a break and understand how business works here, build my network, and see what the need is and really understand the customers. And within the last 5 years, of course, I had a baby. So I have a beautiful 2.5-year-old daughter, and that was really a time for me to explore a different side of life. And now, in the last 6 months, I've been really reflecting and thinking deeply about how I can build my own business here again. And as of a month now, I have been building and working my own company here
Woohoo.
called Vocare. Yeah, so I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing a launch very soon on LinkedIn. And this is really born out of that strong desire again to go back to that bit of paper. What makes me happy? What brings me joy? what would I like to do if I could do anything? And that is to have flexibility. So I realize our most precious asset in life is our time. It
Absolutely.
really is.
And Seshni, thank you so much for, taking us through how your life unfolded and how did you make most of the opportunities and how did you really work through the challenges. I believe that I think it is definitely your positive attitude and the grateful mindset that was probably instilled in you by your parents at the very early on that has really set you up for success in a way that that you're able to kind of lead your life and be able to face challenges in your life. I think that, and more than anything, I would say, because I have met you in person, I would say you are a lovely, lovely, lovely human being. And for me personally, that is a success if you're able to be able to radiate that your true self in a way that kind of helps, just makes other people feel good about themselves, and also be able to have really interesting conversations, be always open to communicating and to share ideas. That is something that really makes us feel come alive, and that you have people around that are really true to themselves, who really will be happy seeing you succeed. And also, I think I would just like to kind of probably conclude by saying that it has been such a great pleasure knowing you, not just as a person, but as a woman as well. I think, different phases of your life, you have really outshined. You've learned from your own challenges and you learn from your own success. And coming from that point, learning from success, that is something that I think we generally not talk about. What do you learn from your success? So given that you had a successful tenure so far and now you're getting into another leg of your own business over here in Australia, what have you learned from your success that you're going to take forward, and what have you learned from your challenges so far that you're going to take forward?
Great question. And Shani, thank you so much for being so kind, and the words that you're using to describe me is it's really, really humbling and it's really lovely. And I just want to also reflect that you're a very wonderful person. Like you're just somebody who's so warm, and I really appreciate that we've made this connection. So thank you for all your kind words, and right back at you. But yeah, to your question, what am I going to take from the success? I think really realizing that the biggest hold, like limit that we put on ourselves is our own mindset and our perspective and fears. And the case for me is often that I underestimate myself, and I kind of surprise myself. I'm like, oh, I can't really do that. And then I realize that's only my thinking, because then I do it. And like a company in Shanghai, I just worked. I just did it. Yeah. And then it's only when I sit back and I go, actually, that was really good. That worked really, really well. And I didn't take enough time to reflect on that. And I think now going forward, I'm going to believe in myself more. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to put my heart and soul into it again. And I'm going to go back to that core mission of how can I help others? How can I help others? What am I doing to help others every day? And that's where I'm going to just lean from and lead with. The failures that I've learned from is definitely not to overwork, especially now that I have a family. There's no way that I'm going to be doing 7-day work weeks. No way. And I'm going to be very strict in my boundaries of time and like blocking out other noise. So from now, it's the strict lessons of if I have too many customers, I'm going to create a wait list, and you can join that wait list. And when I have capacity, I will come to that. But I don't have to do everything in a day. And for example, Fridays are my days with my daughter. So I will not have business meetings on those days. I will not take business calls on those days. I will not do my emails on those days, because I'm investing that time, and I understand that the importance of raising my daughter is more important than my business. So it's just about those boundaries, time, self-care, because I really believe that your business only does as well as you're doing. And that goes into, are you eating enough? Are you sleeping well? Are you exercising? Are you spending time with loved ones? And then everything else flows from that.
This is so true and so candid and so raw and real. Thank you so much, Seshini, for just being yourself, letting us really, kind of see a glimpse of your journey in its most honest way, I think. And I think I've learned a lot for sure. More than anything, I would say it's the attitude of go, just do it. That's the attitude I think that I've picked up. And for all our listeners and people who are watching us today, if you've been glued so far, I know that you have got really interested in Seshini's professional life and her mindset and her as a person itself. And if you want to follow more about her, I will leave the link, probably LinkedIn link, if that's something that
Hmm.
you are happy with. And you can follow her and get to know more about her. She's a very friendly person. And on that note, I would like to tell all my listeners that thank you for staying so far. Do let me know, write to me on Instagram or Spotify, put a comment that what really resonated with you, what has really worked for you, and what would you like to listen to more. And until then, as I always say, start believing in yourself and keep believing in yourself. Thank you so much, Seshnie. And I actually almost forgot one thing that I always request my guest speakers to leave our listeners leave with a quote or a saying that they really resonate with.
Oh, that's lovely. I think it would be, you can't be what you can't see.
So true. So
Yeah,
true. You can't be what you can't see. And sometimes you need to be that person to create so that other people can see it,
yes,
just as Seshini has done it. So thank you,
exactly.
Seshini, for being on this podcast and reminding us of that we all have that particular power to, do what we want. We just need to start taking those actionable steps and have conviction. And that's all what we try and convey through the podcast, my first step ever. So thank you so much for everyone watching us, listening, and especially thanks to Session. Please do give ratings and please do write your comments. And you can directly reach out to me on my first step ever _IN. That's my Instagram handle. A little about myself. I have always loved performing on stage, acting, speaking, and just emoting myself. So I use these medium different ways so that I can connect with people, help them, empower them, infotain them, which is to inform them and entertain them. If you would like to collaborate for any opportunities, more than welcome to connect with me on my Instagram handle. Thank you.